You're listening to The Bird Bath. This episode of The Bird Bath is brought to you by Ignite Veterinary Solutions, creators of the Veterinary Receptionist Certificate of Excellence, the VRCE. CSR Week is in April. Celebrate your front desk if you want, but if you're serious about performance, elevate it. With more than 1,000 graduates and thousands more enrolled, VRCE is becoming the standard across veterinary medicine. Graduates report greater confidence booking appointments, 82% report higher confidence in financial conversations, and 80% remain in their role, representing a 50% reduction in front desk turnover. More appointments, stronger financial conversations, greater stability. Your front desk drives your revenue. Train it like it matters. This isn't a feel-good training, it's economic performance. Join the movement. Visit vrce.vet and use the coupon code BIRDBATH25 for a special offer for VRCE General Practice, VRCE Specialty and Emergency, and now VRCE in Espanol. Welcome back to the Bird Bath. Each week we scrape the surface of the news you need to know, so let's get into it. First story for us this week comes from OpenVet. Now, we talked about OpenVet a couple times. One when they did a little bit of a shake-up for folks thinking about the NAVLE and where AI falls in that. But OpenVet has just launched VetClaw. Now, this is going to get kind of geeky and techy for you here in a minute, but I want to kind of break down a bit of what's going on in the AI space and what people are looking at. So VetClaw, and the reason why the name is there is because it is actually layering on some of the agents within OpenClaw. OpenClaw is an open source AI agent framework. So it's open source means it's available to anyone. And you can think of it kind of like an app store for AI skills. It has absolutely taken off across the AI space right now. Then people have developed hundreds of skills for human medicine. And now the first one to come out for VetMed has launched, VetClaw. So OpenVet's the company behind it, and they're building a really unique AI tool for veterinary medicine. So VetClaw is their new free open source library of 51 AI skills that plug into OpenClaw, and they're specifically built for veterinary medicine. They include things like species awareness, drug safety checking. So like don't give a cat a dog's dose, but for 51 different skills here. Clinical reasoning for specific species, pharmacological updates, as well as pharmacy lookups, pulling from FDA adverse event databases for animals, and even a documented protocol for personalized vet cancer immunotherapy. So the hot story last week that a lot of people talked about was the coder, the developer who claims to have said that he used OpenAI to cure his dog's cancer. That story has a little bit more hair on it than what we can dig into, but the idea here is that VetClaw is going to be giving people the ability to be able to add a much deeper layer of knowledge and AI skills into any one of their tools. So the reason it's a big deal, any AI agent or PIMS platform now can plug these skills into their tool base for free. It's not something you buy, it's a building block that anyone can use. Before this, if you wanted AI to reason about veterinary medicine, you had to utilize generic human-focused AI that doesn't know exactly what's going on, or utilize one of the major tools that people are building that really focuses on all of the nuanced importance of what's happening in the space. So this story could be a whole episode, and I know some of the people at other AI-focused vet shows are probably going to dig deep into it, but definitely something worth checking out if you're in the technology side of veterinary medicine. Now, the AVMA sent out their report a little while ago, but it's this economic state of the profession report, and it's one that I've been looking for the right time to slot it in here, and I think we found the right time. So thank you first off to the AVMA for providing us the report to go through here. And there's some great data. First off, the income gap between new grads and established vets is really sort of contracted and it's kind of falling apart. New grads are entering private practices at about $134,000 starting salary, while long-term established vets are at $154,000. So it has definitely been closing in here. And we're seeing now that new veterinarians are starting to get paid very close to what extremely long-term veterinarians, 10 plus years of vet experience, are getting paid. So the question is kind of raising, what are people getting for that experience? And is this a situation where we're starting to see that people can be benefited by expanding or moving to new practices or finding different places to work? Because a lot of people find that they get a raise when they move to a new place. So big thing there. Additionally, debt has begun to increase as well. Average debt in 2025 hit $174,000 across all grads and $212,000 for those graduating debt. So you factor in the ones that graduate debt-free versus some that don't. So $212,000 for people that are graduating with debt. Nearly 20% of grads carry over $300,000 of debt. And the debt-to-income ratio has stayed about the same, but salaries have raised as well. One that we all have heard about nonstop is that revenue per vet is down for companion animal practices. Gross revenue, though, did go up at the practice level, but revenue per full-time equivalent veterinarian actually declined for companion animal exclusive practices. So what they're saying here is there are more people, but they're making the same amount of pie there. Practices as well are getting bigger. Practices grew from 12% to nearly 20% of the market in the past decade, but it seems like maybe productivity per vet is flattening or falling off. Finally, the story that a lot of us know about with it is that independent ownership of practices is continuing to decline while corporate practices are growing. Now, the reason why that matters here is when we look at what the data of who the respondents were. The graduate information is always super sound. You've got the graduate and senior surveys that gets information across all the different veterinary schools. They have an 82% response rate. And then the Census of Veterinarians is another place where they pull some of this data. They reached out and Qualtronics surveyed a large group of AVMA members, but extremely low response rate. Only 17.5% of those members actually responded to the survey. So giving not the best numbers there. And then finally, the big thing that I always find with this survey, and I appreciate when it comes out, but it always sort of seems to miss one giant piece of the space, is that the majority of the respondents are independent practice owners. So 95.4% of the respondents worked at practices that were independently owned, and only 3.6% of them worked at corporate joint ventures. So it's kind of an issue when I look at this data to understand. So when I look at this as a state of the profession, I think of it as an economic state of independent practices. It doesn't fully encapsulate what's going on in the 30+% of corporately owned practices. And those practices are the ones that we see driving over 50% of total revenue across the industry. So it's a very important piece, and it's a great survey to see, but it does have that missing piece where we got to get the consolidators and large corporate groups participating in it to get us the right data. Now, speaking of big groups with big data, IVC Evidensia across the pond is eyeing their IPO. They operate over 1,800 practices across Europe, and they were valued at more than $12 billion in 2021 when they redid some of their financing. But they have more than doubled their earnings since 2021 from £373 million to £698 million annually. So the expectation is that they're going to be seeing significantly more than that $12 billion valuation that they had in 2021. The other thing really interesting about this is that they're going to be, conversation says that they're going to be listing on the London Stock Exchange, and it's going to be one of the largest IPOs for the London Stock Exchange in recent years. They've seen sort of a decline of really large IPOs, especially from private equity groups. A lot of these private equity groups have been choosing smaller or other countries' exchanges to list on. Now, IVC Evidensia is a large group, but like I said, they are private equity owned, and they are backed by a company that many of you have heard of, EQT. EQT owns quite a few businesses, and along with IVC Evidensia, they also own Vet Partners in Australia and New Zealand. They have over 250 practices there. They're also the majority owners of Dechra Pharmaceuticals, which a lot of you know, as well as Zoo Plus, which is an online pet retailer in Europe. So a lot of big things happening here. It's going to be probably next year before we see this actually coming to fruition. But the thing that's happening this week that really matters is the UK's Competition and Markets Authority are releasing their findings from the study that we have talked about over the past year or so. And it's something that I have been following along. They might be dropping their studies as soon as you're listening to this episode, but they for sure have given themselves a deadline for this week. So that's going to weigh heavily on what EQT decides to do with IVC Evidensia, as well as what happens across the entire UK animal health world. Now let's take it from big dollars of private equity monies and things like that, and selling things for tens of hundreds of billions of dollars and pounds and euros and all of those things. And let's take it to some people giving money back to the industry and giving money back to growth within our space. So first off, the Zoetis Foundation has raised their support of the American Veterinary Medical Foundation to $2.25 million in veterinary scholarships. They're awarding 70 vet students $25,000 scholarships each, as well as an additional $10,000 scholarships to 35 veterinary technician students. Since 2021, the Zoetis Foundation has distributed over $35 million in total grants for education, well-being, and livelihood. It's really, like we talked about with the AVMA thing, coming at an important time. We're seeing students with $200,000+ of debt, so a $25,000 scholarship could be a really, really wonderful ability for them to see that debt taken care of in a much shorter time, and an opportunity as well for them to be able to stack these sort of opportunities with others to be able to reduce the financial barriers for those who come out of school ready to practice medicine. The final grants that we're seeing are PetSmart Charities has awarded $3 million in shelter grants. So this week is National Adoption Week, and PetSmart's charity has put together this $3 million fund to give to community animal welfare organizations across the country to support in-store adoption programs. So as the local shelters are coping with this increasing demand, especially for the large dogs that we talked about with the Hills study last week, I think, PetSmart Charities gives some additional support for these adoptable pets. So they help cover veterinary care, enrichment, nutrition, and they want to make sure that these animals are ready to go into new loving homes. So if you're thinking, hey, you know what, maybe now is the time to bring home a new furry friend, PetSmart locations across the country are going to have pets ready and available to adopt as part of their National Adoption Week. So now's the time. Go out and see if there's the right pet for you. And be sure to stay tuned, because I'm going to definitely be jumping back in to learn more and talk more about what's going on with the Competition and Markets Authority in the UK. I think it's going to be a very, very big week for news. And for more on these and other stories, join us by subscribing to our Substack. There's a link in the bio, and don't miss out on any episodes by subscribing and rating the show. For The Bird Bath, I'm Ryan Leach. See you next week.